Hey everybody, Dave from the Wrestling Showcase. This week we're going to the Extreme and we're going to be talking a little bit about some ECW. The gear we're going to cover was worn in multiple companies, but they all circle and center around superstars from ECW, just like the piece next to me, which you're going to see. Take a guess in the comments and see if you know who it is.
The Wrestling Showcase, hosted by David Chudy.
Next to me, if you haven't figured it out, was worn by a team that debuted in ECW in 1993 at a pay-per-view called Ultra Clash. It was worn by none other than Rocco Rock of the Public Enemy. Now, if you're not too familiar with Public Enemy, you can look back in some of the history books and you can see them in ECW, WCW, and the WWF for a short period of time. This piece I know came from another collector, and it was an early model piece that he wore in his career. The reason I know that is because if you look back at some of the interviews that he did, all of his early pieces were hand stitched. And I'll show an up close photo of this, you could see the hand stitching on all the pieces, and you can see how rough it is around some of the edges. Some of the strings are coming off. This was definitely one of his original first pieces. And if you look at some of his later pieces, they were real colorful. They matched his tag team partner, Johnny Grunge. But this was definitely one of the earlier ones, and check out some history on him if you're not too familiar with them. Piece I'm going to show is from the whole effing show, Rob Van Dam. Now, I got these pieces directly from Rob, but it's very hard to tell where they came from. I was able to screen match some of them, but some of his pieces are so generic and used on multiple pieces of gear that it's very hard to screen match them. For instance, I have this. It's the kick pads worn over his boots. This one says Van Dam, and this one says Van Dam. But what I can tell from, if you look up close, it says WWE and ECW champ and Mr. Money in the Bank. So I could tell that when I acquired these from him, at least this was after that period where he won Money in the Bank and was ECW and WWE World Champion. However, we could screen match him as much as we want. We're never going to be able to tell which one was used in which match because he had a lot of sets of these. Another cool piece I have that I was able to screen match, but unfortunately not to WWE, are these pair of boots. And I'm going to show you an up close of them. These boots I was able to screen match when he was on his independent run after he left the WWE. I'm still trying to look for pictures of him wearing that style of boot. From what I can tell from all the wrestlers that I've talked to, most of them didn't have that many pair of boots. They did transition sometimes throughout the years, but once they had a style, they wore it till it wore out. And you can see the up close on this. It's very frayed. Some of the coloring's off of it. You could also see, and I'll show you some close-ups, even his autograph on these is pretty worn out for how old they are, but it's a cool piece that I have. The last piece from Rob Van Dam I'm going to show, the best I can tell, I could screen match these to a couple WrestleManias and Money in the Bank. But again, they're such a generic pair of boot, I'm never going to know where they were worn. These came directly from Rob Van Dam, and you can see the photo next to it. This is when I bought it from him. He took the picture holding these. He was very reluctant to do that because he's not too big of a fan of resellers. But I assured him that these were going to stay in my collection. That's why he was willing to do it. But this one's signed Rob Van Dam, 5-star. And then this one is signed The Whole Effin' Show.
Collector's Corner.
All right, so let's take a look at Mike Parker's collection. He's got a wide array of ECW pieces that he's about to tell you about. Enjoy.
Hey, this is Mike from the Pro Wrestling Mini Museum, and we're going to take a look at some ECW ring-worn gear. So first up, we've got this Taz singlet. Now Taz had a lot of little details with singlets that pretty much look alike. It's signed in 98. I'm going to place this one around 97. Right next to him is his biggest rival, Sabu. Did find a photo match on this. Sabu in his feud against Cactus Jack. Then you have, to me, probably the most integral character in ECW. At least one of the most, which is Raven. Because just think of the angles he was in and how many characters were introduced. And they started with some kind of connection to Raven or his nest. Then we have one of my favorites from late ECW, that being Dawn Marie. This particular outfit can most prominently be seen at Guilty as Charged, but I do have a picture of her wearing it with the Impact players. Next up, we got this Beulah McGillicuddy skirt. Not gonna lie, Beulah was my favorite back in the day. And there's a picture of her wearing the skirt with an ECW shirt. Just classic ECW there. Then we've got a pair of shorts worn by Pitbull Gary Wolf. It says ECW ring worn. Not sure if they were actually worn in ECW, but it's good enough for me. Next, we have a real heavy hitter. We've got Devon Dudley's tie-dye from ECW One Night Stand. Do have the pants, but had to put them away again for space reasons. There you see a picture of him right there. Hard to get a Dudley's tie-dye, even harder to get one where you know where it's from. Can't talk about ECW without talking about Mr. Monday Night, everybody's favorite wrestler, Rob Van Dam. He wore this at WrestlePalooza 97. Also wore it at a house show in Blackwood, New Jersey. Got a picture of him right there. And if you look at the back, big hole. He got that at the show in Blackwood, and I was actually there for that. Also can't talk about ECW without the Queen of Extreme, Francine. There's a nice gold dress she wore with the franchise Shane Douglas. Unfortunately, I do not have any Shane, and you can ask any collector about why that is. Here you see an actual Sinister Minister jacket. It says it's from November to Remember 2000, which is accurate, but he never made it to the match because this damage was not from anything on TV. In reality, he had an accident with a machine that shot fireballs, and that's where all this damage is from. And that was actually his last appearance in ECW. So here you see Bill Alfonso's shirt from the TNA ECW reunion pay-per-view, even though they couldn't call it that. Hardcore Justice in 2010. In the main event, Bill managed both Sabu and RVD. So you've got Sabu on one sleeve and RVD on the other. So earlier we talked about Francine. Now, when she was originally brought in, she was the girlfriend of Stevie Richards. And here you can see a pair of those shorts, property of Stevie Richards. Of course, one of the most memorable events in ECW at As Good As It Gets 97 was what turned into the bloodbath between Beulah McGillicuddy and Bill Alfonso. So I do have Beulah's knee pads from that event, and they are signed on the back by not only Beulah, but Tommy Dreamer as well.